Good morning, top of the morning to you. Today we're going to look at how I moved from real estate into professionally managed futures accounts and how the setbacks helped me through my witness of the progress that I made throughout this period. I had ended my career with the door-to-door book business, and I was excited about real estate because this was back in the early 80s, and you could really do no wrong with real estate at that time. The 70s was a very inflationary type period, as you'll remember, and I got into real estate because it was a fascinating area. We lived in Houston at the time, and my wife was an interior decorator, and this really worked well. Well, during the early part of the 80s, we had bought some apartments and some office buildings and developed them. And we even moved out to Phoenix because that's where I'd left the book business. I'd sold out to that Fortune 500 company. And we'd bought some office buildings in Phoenix and developed them and saw good progress. But then came along the 1987 recession, who wiped out all of our real estate interest and changed our mind about investing in real estate, needless to say. Have you ever had some setbacks that you didn't anticipate? Well, that's the reason I wrote the book that I did, The Winning Advantage, Tap Into Your Richest Resources. You do have some rich resources, and if you're not using them, then this is an opportunity to exploit those opportunities. And so that's why we have what we have in the way of these podcasts. And so I invested in real estate, but then the setback in 1987 changed my world. And so we moved from Phoenix into an area that was different than anything I'd ever imagined. And that is one of my great mentors, named Spencer Hayes, who was the chairman of the book company that I was with, the Southwestern Company, told me that, he said, you ought to pursue what you know the most about. Well, at the time, I knew more about commodities because I'd charted my dad's corn and soybean charts when I was 12 years old. He was not a great commodity trader, but he was very fascinated by the business. He didn't have the confidence in himself that would yield a profit. But it did instill a lot of interest in me, and we spent a lot of time charting his charts of stocks and commodities and what have you. And so I knew more about futures. Well, I thought it'd be a good opportunity to get into commodities after being total loss in the real estate business because I had to file a bankruptcy, Chapter 7. It was very discouraging at the time. But I looked into the mirror and I had to ask myself, did the Lord put me here to be a nobody? I mean, I could get on a freighter out to the South Sea Islands and live on the beach with a tin cup and live my life the way that would be, which is not what I'd set out to do in life. And so that was not a choice. It was not an option. And so I knew that I knew more about futures, so why not try to get a job with a major brokerage company. And so I went to 42 brokerage companies throughout the West, and out of the 42, only one offered me a job because, again, it was in the recessionary type period, the 1987. So brokerage companies really weren't hiring new people, and I was 42 years old, and I had some experience. But there was one company in Dallas, Texas, that did want to hire me, and I moved from Phoenix to Dallas and set up, and I made my first year with Merrill Lynch, and I made over 17,000 cold phone calls, went out on 125 interviews and signed up 11 clients. Well, these 11 clients were of the top 100 wealth families in Texas. One of them was Lamar Hunt, another was Bum Bright, names that many people know of. And I went out and saw many different prospects, and they had to have $1 million minimum in order to gain access to what I had to what I had to offer and what I had to show them. Well, there were setbacks involved because filing bankruptcy in real estate was not an encouraging feature in my life. But I knew that I was meant here to be somebody. And so what is it I knew more about than anything else? And that was, as I've said, is the futures industry. And so I went, and for 2 years I was with Merrill Lynch. Well, I allocated money from people's portfolio of stock and bonds into what we call managed futures. And this is where professionals are buying and selling the futures contracts in behalf. I did not make the orders. I strictly recruited the money and then put it into the professionals' hands to make the buy and sell decisions on different futures contracts. Well, this worked well because my big sale was to be able to diversify a portfolio, and many people's portfolio were stocks, bonds, real estate, what have you. And futures, the price of soybeans, price of corn, price of cotton had nothing to do with the price of real estate or Avon or Boeing Aircraft or any of the stock companies. So it worked out well. I created an opportunity for people to diversify and protect their assets. And this was because I was very enthusiastic about what I was doing. I did have a purpose, and the purpose that I had brought out in the past was this time where the purpose was to relate to people to diversify their portfolio, to not only protect what they had, but also to progress in a way that it would actually grow the portfolio. Well, after 2 years, I left Merrill Lynch and went over to Smith Barney. And at that time, I had developed ability to recruit new people. And my 1992 and 93 years, and I joined this Merrill Lynch in 1988. But in 92 and 93, I was fortunate enough to be the #1 producer out of over 12,200 brokers in the world with Smith Barney. And so this led me to realize that futures was a good way to diversify. But now, one thing I thought of at the time had never been created was to use stock in lieu of cash to underwrite the managed future account. This way, many people that have stock portfolios in their desk drawer, never gonna sell them because they don't need to pay taxes on it. Well, using that, maybe 80% of the value of the stock to underwrite the managed future account, you would be using two assets one way in a diversified portfolio at no interest cost. And that way it would help increase the value of the overall portfolio. Well, I talked to the chairman and the president of Smith Barney, told them my idea, and they threw up their hands with excitement and thinking, why have we not thought about such a situation? Well, what is the point and what is the reason for bringing this out? Well, it is that when you're in something, in an endeavor, that you know you're pursuing a certain purpose in life, and you have goals set up within that purpose, you will come up with certain ways and means that you never dreamed of. I know I never dreamed of using stock in lieu of cash to underwrite a managed future account, what we call managed future account. But because I was in the business and I had my heart in it. Now, there were many setbacks. There were many clients that decided they didn't want to continue on. There were many sales calls that I went out on that they didn't want to invest. I did not let that discourage me. I did not let that set me back. I only kept my mind on the purpose of those that did invest and the benefit they would receive from doing so. And this is how you need to apply it to your business or profession. Don't look at the negatives as a way of life. You look at the negatives as a learning process. What is it they said that the reason they didn't want to invest? I looked at those reasons and I countered them with reasons that they should invest. And that way I built a business. Well, it went on and on and on. I left Smith Barney because they wouldn't approve a lot of the managers I wanted to work with. And I had done 6.3 million in gross commissions, and Prudential offered me a job to come over across the street, and they gave me a check for $3,152,000. Well, that's a long ways away from being broke, filing bankruptcy just a few years earlier. And so I went over to Prudential, and I developed more business. Prudential got into trouble with their real estate partnerships that they had sold back in the 70s and 80s. And I had a lot of calls from clients as to what's going on. You know, what is the deal? Prudential's on TV every night about filing bankruptcy. Well, it was at that time that I talked to the president of the company, and he said, Doug, you've done enough business to pay us back for the $3,152,000 that we'd paid you to come over here. You've done more than that much business. If you want to leave, you can do so. Well, in the late 80s, I did decide to leave and start my own company, and I started from scratch. And also, some of the people that I was with Prudential did come over, but mainly I started from scratch. Went out and developed, and then 18 years later, I sold that company to a hedge fund for $8.5 million upfront dollars. Well, what is the essence of the story? One is that you will be hit with setbacks. You will be hit by failures. You will be hit by negatives. In the Bible, Jesus promised you that the life is always not going to be good. But there is a way to come out of that if you have the purpose, the goals, and you set the procedure in a way that you're a winner and not a loser. Don't think of yourself as a negative. And you want to think of yourself as a winning opportunity, and that only there are stumbling blocks, there are not roadblocks that are in your way. And this is why it led me to a job in futures to begin with, because I was familiar with that. I knew that the next step would be the opportunity to jump into a new height, to a new level. Well, if you're that committed on anything that you're wanting to do, you will not accept failure as an opportunity. You do not know how to spell the word failure. It is only success. And you never leave to get away from something. You leave to go to something. And this is the key. Many people are hopping from job to job to job. Well, it's often been said that successful people are interested in pleasing results, whereas failures are interested in pleasing methods. You never leave to go away from something. You leave to go to something. I left Merrill Lynch to go to Smith Barney, and then I left Smith Barney to go to Prudential, and because of the circumstances within Prudential, I left and went out on my own, which was an asset, which was a benefit. I would have never dreamed of that, 8 years prior to that. It would have been far away from my reality of life. And that's why that over the time that I was invested in futures, I saw a better opportunity over the horizon. Have you been having difficulty within your field? Have you had some setbacks you didn't anticipate? We all do. Get used to it. Don't take it personally as an individual. It is only a circumstance that worked against you. You have many gifts. You have opportunities within you. There are 7.6 billion people on the planet, and nobody is quite like you. And so realize that and capture that and spur that into a reality of life. And if you have the opportunities, if you have the benefits from those opportunities, you will be a success. And in order to offset those setbacks, get a copy of my book, The Winning Advantage, Tap Into Your Richest Resources. It will lead you into paths that you never dreamed of before. It will be a book that you'll want to refer to for many years to come. And so many have gotten extra copies that they've given as gifts, and especially right now before Christmas. And so the best is yet to be in your life. Looking forward to talking to you next Tuesday, 9 o'clock. Thank you. Use your talents, embrace your abilities, and pick up a copy of my book. Click the link on my website, thewinningadvantage.com, and purchase one of my books on Amazon. See you next week, Tuesday, 9 o'clock.